Welcome to TTIH News. That's short for Tuesdays Today in History to all of you. Let's take a break here right quick and understand why I'm wearing this wonderful shirt. This shirt is a shirt that I wore the day I married my beautiful wife so many years ago. I wanted to celebrate her today by wearing this shirt on this episode of Tuesdays Today in History. The date, May 12th. You know, before we really get started, I'd like to make a point. It'd really be helpful to all of us, and quite frankly you as well as viewers of this episode, to please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. Those are the things that help us continue to do these types of important videos to help you in your homeschool journey. Now on to the news. Drenthe, a province in the Netherlands, adopted the Gregorian calendar that replaced the Julian calendar in 1701. Why do this? The Julian calendar made by Julius Caesar had calculated the year lasted for 365 days and 6 hours. In fact, it only has 365 days, 5 hours, and 48 minutes, and 45 seconds. Not much difference, right? But enough that 1600 years later, they would be off by 10 days. So to make it all right in 1582, Pope Gregory decided that the world would go from October 4th to October 15th, skipping all days in between. The Gregorian calendar eventually became widely accepted and is used today across most of the world. Let's see what Hanna has for us next. Hanna?
On this day in 1551, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V signed a royal decree opening the doors to the San Marcos University, which makes it the oldest officially established university in the Americas. Today, it consistently ranks among the top 2 universities in Peru and still has a main campus in Lima that dates back to 1551. Noah has a story about ice cream.
The New York Gazette ran the first advertisement for ice cream on this date, 1777.
Hey Noah, that story made me obsessed with ice cream. Well, anybody knows I've always been obsessed with ice cream, but let's get back to the news. Why does it feel so cold in here? Speaking of cold, in 1926, polar explorer Richard E. Byrd and co-pilot Floyd Bennett flew over the North Pole on the 9th of May in 1926. It would have been the first time an aircraft flew over the top of the world. However, a discovery in 1996 of the diary that Byrd had kept on his famous flight suggested that he and Bennett turned back 150 miles short of the pole because of an oil leak. If so, Italian adventurer Umberto Nobile, along with American Lincoln Ellsworth and Norwegian explorer Ronald Amundsen, would receive the credit for the airship flight over the North Pole on May 12, 1926, 3 days after Fletcher and Byrd's flight. It's time to head over to Andrea, where she has a story about a union strike. Andrea.
The coal strike of 1902 was a strike by the United Mine Workers of America in the coal fields of eastern Pennsylvania against the mine operators and the owners. Miners struck for higher wages, shorter workdays, and the recognition of their union. The strike threatened to shut down in the winter fuel supplies to major cities. The strike continued until October 23rd, when both sides decided to settle the strike. The workers won a 10% pay increase and a cutback to a 9-hour workday. Back to you, Barry.
Hanna Noah, are you ready for lightning round? Are you ready to rumble?
1934, Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington, an American jazz composer, pianist, and leader of a jazz orchestra, had a #1 hit with Cocktails for Two.
1797, Napoleon Bonaparte conquered Venice, putting an end to the 3 centuries of Venice independence.
1821, the first major battle of the Greek War of Independence against the Turks occurred in Valtasti.
1998, in Indonesia, President Suharto's security forces opened fire on student protesters at Trisakti University. 6 people were killed, with another 20 were injured.
2002, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter arrived in Cuba. He was the first U.S. president in or out of office to visit Cuba since the 1959 revolution that put Fidel Castro in power.
1982, a Spanish traditionalist priest who opposed the Second Vatican reforms and saw Pope John Paul II as being to blame for the changes was stopped prior to his attempt to attack the Pope with a bayonet.
Really interesting, Hanna and Noah. Queen Wilhelmina, yes, I said Queen Wilhelmina, of the Netherlands, as a matter of fact, abdicated her throne on this day in 1948. She ruled from 1890 to 1948, reigned for nearly 58 8 years. The queen stepped down to poor health and her only daughter assumed the throne.
In 1990, Nora Dunn and Sinead O'Connor boycotted Saturday Night Live to protest Andrew Dice Clay's hosting, which was perceived as sexist. The show used a time delay for only the third time in its history since the beginning in 1975. Next, Noah is going to tell us about an interesting fact about Bob Dylan. Noah?
That's right, Hannah. In the year 1963, a young and unknown Bob Dylan walked off the set of the country's highest-rated variety show, The Ed Sullivan Show, after network censors rejected the song he had planned on performing.
Well, back in 1937, I was chilling like a villain when I happened to see that King George IV was crowned at Westminster Abbey. King George was actually second in line to the throne, but his brother Edward abdicated so he could marry American socialite Wallis Simpson. King George's wife was the much-loved Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, better known as Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother who died at the grand old age of 102 on March 30th, 2002. Their oldest daughter, Queen Elizabeth, is the current Queen of England. Now back to chilling like a villain. Speaking of chilling, are you ready for the deep dive?
Each week I select one topic of the newscast where I provide various materials and references for you and your kids to take a much deeper dive into the subject. So this week's deep dive lesson is about the fascinating history of the Magna Carta. Now, let's get to the story. In the year 1215, on this day in history, English barons served an ultimatum on King John of England known as Lack Land. This event eventually led to the creation and signing of the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta, which means the Great Charter, is one of the most important documents in the entire history. It established the principle that everyone is subject to the law, even the king, and it guaranteed the rights of individuals and the right to justice and the right to a fair trial for all. You can access all of our videos, materials, lesson plans, and much more on the website at homeschool-today.com, as well as link to our videos on YouTube. Thank you so much for allowing us into your world today.
Famous birthdays in history.
1401, Emperor Shoko was the 101st Emperor of Japan was born.
1820, the British nurse who served in the Crimean War, Florence Nightingale, was born in Florence, Italy.
1925, baseball legend Yogi Berra, who was an American baseball catcher, coach, and manager of the New York Yankees and the Mets, was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
History is fascinating. So many things happen every day all around us and have for thousands of years. You can discover more about interesting history that happened on this day or any other day by searching online or visiting your local library.
Yes, you can. Please hit the like button at the bottom of the screen. It's what keeps us making these videos. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so you'll be one of the first to know as new videos are released.
In the famous words of Aldous Huxley, that men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons of history. Until next time, happy homeschooling.
Today's episode has been brought to you by Homeschool Today with Andrea Johns, featuring Tuesdays Today in History.